like to thank Sonia Johnson for making the tour available to us. And of course, if you haven't been there in a while, it's well worth the time to check out the South Dakota National Guard Museum. Like we said, kids love it, and you will always learn something. New exhibits are coming soon, and of course, there's always something new in the collection as well. So thanks again, and make sure you stop by the South Dakota National Guard Museum. While we were there, we also bumped into Secretary Larry Zimmerman. Now, Larry, as you know, is a former Command Sergeant Major in the South Dakota National Guard and currently our Veterans Affairs Secretary.
A veteran is somebody that raised their right hand and served their country and fulfilled their service obligation. So I say anybody that did this, signed that line, whether Reserve, Guard, active duty, or any one of the armed forces, is a veteran in my heart and mind. There's 70,000+, and you know, it's waning a little bit. It was on a peak, and now with Korean and Vietnam and World War II dying as they are, and we don't have any World War I left, it will go down a little bit, but still 70,000+ we serve in a capacity. And we say veterans are going downhill a little bit, or we're losing numbers, but we think Ellsworth Air Force Base with hundreds in Guam right now. Our South Dakota Army and Air Guard deployed, whether it's the West Coast or all over the world, and many on the bubble to do that. And then the active duty still involved in our 15-year conflict overseas. So there's always people overseas, there's always people deployed. And I think that'll unfortunately be a continuous thing. And that's our generator or factory for veterans. Health, education, and compensation. That's the big three that our department helps with. But there's many more things. I have a South Dakota Joining Forces now that works with Ellsworth Air Force Base, the VAs, the federal side, behavioral health folks that can help families, children, and/or military members and veterans. And so there are 276,000 family members, military, and veterans in this state. So there's a huge facet of things that need to be done, but there's also a great amount of resources that are available to all those. So I think it's key to remember, we have a department website. You can look that up, but on the South Dakota Department of Veterans Affairs, a website that can link you in, but also really important, in each county and all the tribes are a county and tribal service officer. Their hours do vary, but they're available in those counties. They have the resources that are available. They are your hour storefront, the veteran storefront, if you will. And that should be whether, again, Guard, Reserve, active duty, coming home, retired, been out since Vietnam and haven't seen anybody. Stop into your county and tribal service officers. Wealth information and a large amount of resources that we can at least check and see what are you eligible for, if you're eligible for something, or just to talk. And you'll always get a thank you for your service when you stop in there. Well, it's it gets emotional for an old man like me. I have a father that, he'd be 104 this February, but he was in World War II in Guinea for 4 years. My mom waited for him. Veterans are near and dear to me because they have raised their right hand. We've had 36 that we've lost in South Dakota since 2001. Veterans Memorial Day, you know, everybody, you can argue about it or whatever. I always want to thank those for their service that are living, whether it's Memorial or Veterans Day. But I also want to remember those we've lost, whether it's Memorial or Veterans Day, and remember the stories. Veterans Day, I think, is a day to thank veterans for their service. Remember them. I never want to not remember them 365, but Veterans Day is that special day. There's 70,000 veterans in our state within these borders. There's 70,000 stories. There's some of those 70,000 stories that can't be told or they can't come up with it, but talking with them, thanking them for their service, and being that set of ears to listen to that veteran give his story is a great opportunity for all those state citizens and constituents to be able to, hey, what do you do in the service? What is your story? I think, you know, first of all, it's nice to ask, did you ever serve? And usually you will get that yes or no. If you get a yes, you can say what service or where, when, and have that conversation flow. The other thing is, and you just mentioned it, the South Dakota Army National Guard that we're standing in is a great place with a lot of stories and a lot of history behind you. The veterans programs throughout the state on Veterans Day are just, Pierre has been awarded many times for their Veterans Day program. The memorials here in this capital city, to walk to the Civil War Memorial, the World War I Memorial, the Korean and World War II and Vietnam Memorial, hopefully one of these days soon a Code Talker Memorial for our many Code Talkers. So walk around, find a veteran. You know, a lot of times I've said they might be invisible. Some of them might be, how do you tell? They're just wearing a coat and pants and slacks and a skirt, and whether it's man or woman, you might have to ask that question. Some of them identify, but I think they're kind of like ghosts. They're out there, but until you talk to them, until you ask, you might not be sure if they're a veteran or not. Get their story, because where they went to basic, when they left, how they traveled there, just anything they have is unbelievable to listen to and learn. We as military members go on deployments. I was in Afghanistan 08 to 09, 9 months, but I was regimented. Whether I was on mission or at the FOB, you knew what you were going to do, when you were going to do it, how you were going to do it, who you were going to do it with, and you left the home front to your spouse, significant other, your children, your mothers, your father. They have that day-to-day not knowing when it's going to happen, what's going to happen. And a lot of times when that service member is deployed, that's when those things happen, whether it's water heaters break down, small house fires, just whatever. If it's going to happen, it happens when that significant other is gone. And the time alone for those family members, their service member surrounded and has that regimented time frame. The family member doesn't have that, but is always 24/7 thinking about their person overseas, whether in a support fashion or in combat. You have to think about that person that's gone. And it's harder on the family members a lot of times than it is the service member. Veterans, thank you for raising your right hand, serving this country, fighting for our freedoms, whether it's in a support system or situation or overseas in combat. You've raised your right hand, said you will defend your country, and as Army and Guard Reserve, you said you would serve your state also. Thank you for doing that. Thank your family members for letting you be a part of that great organization and situation. Families, get your veteran story. Listen when they do talk. And let's go out and enjoy this Veterans Day. Let's come down to the museum and visit it. Let's go to any memorial. Every county in the state has a veterans memorial. For the tribal service officers and the tribal reservations, you have many heroes living amongst you, and you know them. You honor them each and every day. So let's, as a state, celebrate Veterans Day, enjoy it, and thank you for your service.
Well, there's two words that we need to include in this program before we go. Thank you. Thank you to all of our veterans, all the military families, everyone who has ever raised their right hand and taken that oath. You make a difference, and we appreciate your service. So one more time, thank you.